Hey everyone, this is Nate the Effing Great from the Elite Ringside Network, and before we get into the Great Balls of Fire review, I just wanted to state this, that I know that a lot of times I feel like I've been a one-man committee, and I have been abusing power lately. Last night, I said that I was going to challenge for the title, but I did lose to Spencer Hart fair and square. I realized that I should not be putting myself in the title picture, and you know what? It all worked out for the best anyway, because now we have a new champion in Chris Lockman. So I do apologize to Spencer. I apologize to Chris. I apologize to AJ. I apologize to Max for being so abusive with power lately. And I really do want this to work. It's just, I get frustrated sometimes. So I let the anger get the better of me. So I wanted to just say right off the bat, I'm sorry. So I want to be the bigger man. State my apology, and I did wrong. I really did wrong. So I am going to try and be better to be a team player, and we're going to make this work. We're going to make it work entirely. So now with that out of the way, let's go into the Great Balls of Fire show, which was actually a really good show, despite what a lot of people have said, despite what I've even said. The name is still a little bit cheesy, but it was still a absolutely great show. And we kicked off with Neville versus Akira Tozawa for the Cruiserweight Championship on the kickoff show. Unfortunately, Max and I, we did not get a chance to watch the entirety of the matchup, but we did catch the last few minutes, probably like 2-3 minutes of the matchup, in which Akira Tozawa hit his diving senton bomb. Neville rolls out of the ring and then basically takes Akira Tozawa, picks him up. He crotches himself on the ropes. Then Neville hits a kick to Neville's stomach for the 1-2-3. I didn't like the way that ended. That was one of those moments where I thought that this matchup was going to be a little bit better than that. The ending was just very lackluster. I feel like it just went back to the Cruiserweight division as it was beforehand, and that just being a sideshow deal. So I'm hoping that's not going to be the case, but we'll just have to wait and see. So that we kicked off the show with Bray Wyatt versus Seth Rollins. And first of all, Bray Wyatt wins. He finally gets a victory on a pay-per-view. It's been a long time. Bray Wyatt beats Seth Rollins after a thumb to the eye and then the Sister Abigail in what was actually a really good matchup. A lot of people definitely thought Seth Rollins was going to win. One of the reasons why I thought Bray Wyatt was going to come out victorious was because of the fact that they are definitely heavily promoting Seth Rollins as the cover of 2K18. So it's kind of one of those things, like with Money in the Bank, it's like, oh, we're giving you this big opportunity, but you're going to start losing just about every other matchup. So, again, I'm happy that Bray Wyatt won. It's starting to build his credibility again. Hopefully they go in the right direction, and who knows, maybe we'll get Bray Wyatt versus Brock Lesnar down the road. We're going to have to wait and see. The next matchup was Enzo versus Big Cass. At first I thought that the promo between Enzo, was a bit long, but then he found a way to start really getting people behind him, and that was really something that was kind of cool to see. People definitely were starting to get behind Enzo, and they definitely were starting to cheer for him as a babyface. He seems like he's going to do pretty good as a talker. As a wrestler, he did okay, but this was still a really good matchup. This was definitely the matchup that needed to happen. Big Cass looked pretty dominant. Enzo got a couple shots in. He did his best, but in the end, he fell victim to Cass's big boot for the 1-2-3. And apparently on Raw Talk, Big Cass said that he would be the one that could beat the Universal Champion because he's 7 foot tall. Needs to work on his mic skills probably just a little bit more. Maybe have something else to back up behind him besides the fact that he's 7 foot tall. So, yeah, I guess we'll have to wait and see how that goes. The next matchup was the tag team title Iron Man matchup, 30 minutes of just absolute wrestling brilliance. First 30 seconds in, Sheamus hits a bro kick to Matt Hardy, making it a 1-0 deal. Then the Bar hit a tag team maneuver, the White Noise into the neck breaker for it to be 2-0. Then we see a bunch of tag team combinations by the Hardy Boys, which allowed Jeff to hit the Twist of Fate for the 1-2-3 to make it 1-2. Then we see Matt Hardy get counted out, making it 3-1. Then the Hardy Boys basically came back with Jeff Hardy hitting actually Matt Hardy hit a super twist of fate, which was awesome. And then we saw Jeff Hardy take advantage of a backslide pin where Matt Hardy tags him in, did the backslide to Cesaro, and then Jeff Hardy does this like leaping leg combination where he pins his opponents. It's actually a really cool pinning deal, but it tied up the series with just a few seconds left. Cesaro makes a blind tag, and this is where I actually was very surprised by this because this is how they won the tag team titles to begin with. Cesaro and Sheamus, they found a way to prevail. Jeff Hardy hit a Swanton bomb on Sheamus, and then Cesaro came in and pinned Jeff Hardy for the 1-2-3, making it a 4-3 deal in which Sheamus and Cesaro retain the tag team titles. And during the matchup, I can't exactly tell where, but Matt Hardy actually suffered a bit of a cut on his face. I think he was reported he had to get about 9 staples on his face after the match was over. Sheamus actually had to get some medical attention. He may have gotten knocked for a loop. I think that twist of fate definitely did a number on him. This was actually, in my view, was the match of the night until the ambulance match, which we'll get into in just a minute. So we go on to the Women's Championship matchup, Alexa Bliss taking on Sasha Banks. This was another good matchup between the two of them. We see Alexa Bliss do her double jointed deal, which I actually completely forgot about, because I remember she did that with Becky Lynch, and she used that to her advantage to basically take Sasha Banks out of her game. Sasha Banks locked in the bank statement, but Alexa Bliss was able to roll out. Alexa Bliss eventually would get counted out, and Sasha Banks would win, but unfortunately Alexa Bliss would retain. I loved the finish here because it was definitely something heelish, but then Sasha Banks and Alexa Bliss, they beat each other down until Sasha Banks did a dive off of the announce table onto Alexa Bliss. This was, again, a good matchup, and it definitely shows that there's going to be quite a bit of an amazing feud between the two of them. They're going to build up to something really big at SummerSlam for the Raw Women's Championship. I'm looking forward to seeing what they do with it. A lot of people are definitely seeing that Nia Jax could be the next women's champion. I would be very interested in seeing that. I think she'd make a great women's champion. I think she'd be a very dominant women's champion on Raw. But I think there might be some other people that would prefer Sasha Banks. But we'll have to wait and see come SummerSlam. The Intercontinental Championship matchup. First of all, this was the matchup that definitely made my co-host Max just go absolutely crazy, because Bo Dallas, he basically looked like a Duck Dynasty knockoff. I mean, he had the mirror glasses, he had the camel shirt, he had like really shiny jeans, and Curtis Axel basically looked like he just got done attending a prom. It was just one of those deals where the Miz Taraj was turned into diamonds. They turned into something very amazing tonight. Dean Ambrose versus the Miz, though, was a very good matchup. A lot of distractions by the Miz Taraj. Dean tried to even the odds by taking the Miz Taraj out during the matchup, but in the end, the numbers game came back to haunt him, and Miz would hit the skull-crushing finale on Dean Ambrose for the 1-2-3. Miz is still your Intercontinental Champion, and I will tell you guys this. Go check out the Raw Talk with the Miz. It's near the end of the show where Miz and the Miz Taraj talk about the victory. Miz definitely rubbing his nose, basically rubbing in the nose of Renee Young. It's like, hey, I'm still the champion, and your husband is not. And then he talks about how he kept seeing Bo Dallas and Curtis Axel as lower class guys, that they were basically turned into like sideshows, into comedy gigs and everything like that, and he wanted to show that they definitely had a lot more potential. This was a really good promo by The Miz, and he basically says, just like I was proved to everybody that, I'm a star, I'm going to prove to everybody that these two guys are stars. This was actually a really good promo, and I'm loving what they're doing with Bo Dallas and Curtis Axel. It's really something to behold, and I think that Bo Dallas, on the mic, he's still got some really good ring skills. Curtis Axel, again, just being great. I would have loved to see Curtis Axel be like the Joey Mercury of the group, where he just doesn't even say anything. But, if they need him to talk, then okay. Maybe they're just helping him building up his promo skills. But honestly, it was a really good segment. Again, the match was great. So then we move on to the ambulance matchup, which was indeed match of the night. Braun Strowman versus Roman Reigns is turning out to be one of the most memorable feuds that we had ever seen. These guys definitely just took each other to the limit. There are a couple moments that really stood out. Braun Strowman basically getting sent through the lights on the stage. One moment that definitely stood out the most was, this is during the matchup, the chair shots that Roman Reigns hits to Braun Strowman, and Braun just takes it like it's absolutely nothing. And then Roman hits again. Braun's just like, keep hitting me, keep hitting me, keep hitting me, until Braun Strowman just grabs the chair, beats down Roman Reigns. The end of the match was very smart, because Braun Strowman looked like he was about to get speared by Roman Reigns. Roman Reigns actually overjumps. He lands into the ambulance, and Braun Strowman closes the door. Braun Strowman is victorious in the ambulance matchup, but Roman Reigns would come out, spear Braun Strowman, and then he would throw him into the ambulance, slam the door on his head, throw him into the ambulance, drive it off, and then he would actually speed it backwards into a trailer, crushing the ambulance. This was one of the scariest, but also one of the most amazing moments I had seen in WWE. And a lot of people are saying that this could be the night that we saw a double turn, where Roman Reigns turns fully heel and Braun Strowman will be face. Now, here's where things got really interesting. They had a bit of a filler matchup because they really showed off the whole Braun Strowman getting taken out of the ambulance. They actually called the fire department. They got the Jaws of Life. They had a matchup which was Kurt Hawkins versus Heath Slater. Heath Slater picked up the victory in some sort of dominant fashion, I guess. It was really kind of one of those things where they just... it was just kind of thrown together. You definitely could tell that it wasn't one of those things where they were expecting it. It was just kind of one of those things where it's like, oh, we need something to fill. Get these guys out there. So Braun Strowman, he came out of the ambulance. He looked very bloody, and he was just completely wrecked. But the fact was, he refused medical assistance. He just found a way to get up and found a way to walk on his own out of the arena, presumably. This was honestly a great matchup, and it definitely begs the question, is Roman Reigns finally going full heel, or is this just one of those things where it's like, oh, we're going to let Roman Reigns get away with attempted murder? I don't see that happening. I think that this might be the match in which we may see Braun Strowman get the number one contendership spot, and it will be Braun Strowman versus Brock Lesnar at SummerSlam. Now, a lot of people will disagree with that, but it's because of this reason. So let's move on to the main event, which was Brock Lesnar versus Samoa Joe. This matchup had been hyped up perfectly. The build-up was great. The matchup itself was definitely something to behold. Definitely the finish does kind of scratch a lot of people's heads. But before we get into the finish, Samoa Joe, he looked like a beast. I honestly thought it was going to end in a no contest. But Samoa Joe picked up Brock Lesnar and did his Uranagi slam through the announce table. I just remember looking over at Max, and his jaw was almost he was just in that shock gaze where he was just like, did this really just happen? Brock Lesnar would eventually come in. Samoa Joe would just fight and fight. But then Brock Lesnar would go on and hit suplex after suplex after suplex after suplex. Samoa Joe would still find a way to lock in the Coquina Clutch multiple times. But then Brock Lesnar picks up Samoa Joe, hits the F5, 1, 2, 3. So the match itself was actually very interesting. It was definitely a spectacle. The finish, though, I can understand that they were probably trying to cut time because they put so much into the whole Braun Strowman versus Roman Reigns deal. But it did feel like they were lazy with the finish. I think that they could have gone maybe just a couple more minutes, maybe have Samoa Joe kick out of like 2 F5s and just find a way to just keep fighting back, and then maybe a third F5, 1, 2, 3. I think that would have been a better way to book it. But I can kind of also understand why they did it. I don't like the reason why they did it, but it is what it is. What are you going to do? I mean, you can't really blame WWE fully, but at the same time, you can just blame them for that finish. If anybody wants to criticize the finish, I'm totally okay with that. The match itself was really good, so totally fine with that. All in all, this was the first ever Great Balls of Fire. Are they going to do more? More than likely, and honestly, Max and I both agreed on one thing, that if they are going to do more than one of these things, let this be the biggest show outside of the big four. So for, I think, WWE, for SmackDown Live, I should say, they should have Backlash be the big one for SmackDown Live, and the big one should be Great Balls of Fire for Monday Night Raw. I doubt that's what's going to happen, but I think if they have like one of those shows where it's like every so often they make it bigger and better and they make it have great bookings, then you know it's going to be watchable. You know it's going to be absolutely amazing. But, like I said, we'll just have to wait and see what WWE does. It definitely would help their ratings. We'll say that right now. And, I mean, Josh brought up a good point. I mean, once the contract with USA is up and they decide not to renew, what are they going to do? I mean, are they going to rely solely on the network? Are they going to just rely solely on, ticket sales and stuff like that? We'll just have to wait and see, because obviously if something doesn't change with Monday Night Raw and with SmackDown, obviously they are going to look into other ventures, and one of them could indeed be GFW. But that's a conversation for another time. All in all, Monday Night Raw definitely provided a great show with Great Balls of Fire. Definitely, I would give this I would definitely give it 4 stars out of 5. I think it was really good. It probably would go up to the 5-star deal had it not been for the finish to Samoa Joe and Brock Lesnar. If they would have had a great finish for that, it would have made more sense and it probably would have gotten a 5-star rating. But 4 stars is actually still pretty good. So thank you guys so much for listening in to this review for Great Balls of Fire. This week we will have Raw Reaction, Smack Talk, Change the F Up, and on Sunday, of course, you guys, we will start the new series of SmackDown vs. Raw 2017, which pits myself versus Max Beatty. Definitely stuff that you guys will want to listen into. So thank you guys so much for joining, and have a good one. Talk to you tomorrow.